everybody, and welcome again to an edition of Bourbon Over Baseball with your host Bob and co-host Peter.
Good to be back, Bob.
We had a little hiatus. Schedules are crazy. I've had my kid, and Peter is doing his holiday stuff and work, and it just gets in the way sometimes.
Every once in a while. Every once in a while.
But don't worry, everybody. This will be, you'll see lots of content coming. We're still moving ahead. Yankees are today. We got other National League teams coming after this, so there's going to be content after content coming.
Yeah, Yankees are going to be fun to talk about, too.
And speaking of the Yankees, now that my kid is born, I'm back to drinking actual whiskey and bourbon, which is great because obviously that's part of the reason why I did this podcast to start with and had you join up with me was I like my bourbon and I like my baseball. And instead of on the rocks, I like it on my baseball. But today I am drinking Hudson Maple Cast Rye Whiskey, which is a little strong taste-wise. But it's actually not bad. I've never had it before. My buddy and me tried it for one of our Showdown games. But it is handcrafted and bottled by Town Spirits in Gardner, New York. So
nice.
We got a New York whiskey with the New York rye grain today for the New York Yankees.
Perfectly fitting.
That's right. So we got the Yankees, who are one of another big-time points teams, along with the Dodgers and the Red Sox. This is one of, probably the second or third best team in the American League. They won 100 games. Some of those wins obviously against the Orioles, but really this team was strong. How did you see it?
Yeah, it's incredible how good their starting lineup is. Definitely a team that's going to beat up on the weaker squads with low control pitchers. No real ace in the rotation, and the bullpen solid throughout. It's going to be really useful. I was a little surprised at some of the lower on bases, I guess, for some of the hitters. Tough to see Gary Sanchez take the step back this year that he did, but still just a monster lineup, almost 3,000 points alone going to your hitters. It's going to be a fun team to play with.
Yes, and speaking of Gary, I think the GM and owner have said that they want Gary again next year at the Yankees, so maybe he has a chance to improve. But yeah, the lineup is stacked. In terms, though, of Showdown drafting, I feel like a good number of people could be drafted from this team, but in terms of the way you do things, I think this is actually a well-rounded team.
Yeah, and the deep bullpen, Lance Lynn is the weakness in the rotation, but because we only use 4 starting pitchers, they're just sort of top to bottom, nice and steady with tier 3 guys. So they're going to be highly competitive, and there's not some of the weak spots in the bullpen like there is with the Red Sox, and they're not as deep or versatile in terms of the fielding, but I don't think that matters as much. I really think that in my Showdown League, they're going to be pretty equal to Boston.
Well, this team is, especially lineup-wise, this kind of goes to the old Showdown strategy where power up your lineup. Everybody in this lineup is like a home run hitter. Their weakest hitters, quote-unquote, are 19 through 20 home runs. That's including the bench. I mean, this team, that's what they do. They hit the long ball. They're exciting to watch. I mean, I'm not a big Yankees fan because I'm an Indians fan, so I got the Yankees hate. But I appreciate their team. I'm a big Judge fan. But, let's start off with the lineup. And I sort of tried to put it in order of one of their last games. But let's start off with Aaron's. Talk about the Aaron's.
God, the double Aaron's here. Aaron Hicks has just been sort of a rapid riser in terms of Showdown card skill. He was an on-base 9 in the 2017 set, a 340-point type guy, and he just improved this year. On-base 9, 18 to 20 home run, walks at 5. Not a ton of he's 18 speed, very useful. Not a defensive guy in center field, but just someone you can plug into your lineup almost anywhere for 400 points and get a lot of production.
Yeah, and for anybody that's just listening, the speed is not just stolen bases, as maybe old Showdown was, but speed is actually stolen bases and the ability to round bases and run the base paths, advancing on singles, advancing on doubles. So having an 18 speed doesn't mean that he is this speed demon in sense of stolen bases, but Showdown itself. When you hit a single and a guy's on second base, how well is this guy actually going to score from second base? This guy can get a good jump. That's what he's showing.
Well, the guy who should knock him in from second base a lot is this Aaron Judge card, which may be one of my favorite looking cards that's been made so far.
Yeah, I went with the Patriot version for was it the 4th of July game, I believe, that they all wore their stars and stripes, and there's someone later on that matched them, the sort of Bash Brothers look that they got going on. But
it really looks good, and I have to compliment you. Did a great job at sizing these players. The images you found work perfectly to just fit in these slots, and they're sort of larger photos, and it brings the sort of larger than life Yankees sort of feel to the team, and it looks awesome.
Well, you could thank the Yankees media, I'm sure, because they had great resolution pictures to get from.
Yeah, and Judge as a card, little drop off from last year when he was an on base 10. I think I had him as a home run at 16. I know you made one where his home run at 17. Either way, just a total monster of a home run hitter. This year, took a little step back in terms of the counting numbers. Ended up still an on base 10, 18 to 20 home run, double at 16, +2 in the outfield. I know he was someone who you consider giving the +3 arm to.
That's what people are surprised by. I've talked to many people when I had my old Aaron Judge card, and they were like, what is this guy a +2 for? He's not that good. I'm like, well, if you look at the numbers, I mean, he ranks in the top last year and this year in fielding. I mean, I don't know if it's just his great size. I know he's got a pretty good arm, but I think he reads the ball well. He can rob home runs. I know they count that in the DRS, the defensive run saves, because he's stealing a home run. He's actually saving runs there. And being so big, he can do that, especially in Yankee Stadium. But I think he actually is a better fielder than people think, and I think he's well-deserved of this +2.
And maybe a guy next who the people are going to be surprised at lower defensive numbers, Didi Gregorius. He's only a +1. I think he's going to be someone that a lot of fans will say, well, I thought he'd be better.
Well, he was better at the beginning of the seasons. I know on Twitter, the Sir Didi MVP chants were going crazy for like the first half, thinking he was the best shortstop to ever play. But this is really what Didi is. I mean, he's kind of a power guy, low on base. I mean, not low, but he's okay. Low. He's good. He's good. He's good enough for your average, a little bit maybe below average shortstop, but above average in power and maybe hitting. His charts are good with above 3, getting on base. He fills that chart up later on. So
yeah, he's definitely really close to the on base 8. You can tell by the low walk that he was very close to that borderline. But yeah, another on base 7 year from Didi. One of the things I love about Showdown is you can look at guys like him, and he probably feasted on the lower control, weaker pitchers that they faced. And at the end of the day, Manny Machado would still be a significant upgrade over Didi.
I agree, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, they are not looking at Machado. Though I've heard some funny rumors about them signing like monster 1-year deals, but it's sort of been shooted around the Twitterverse. But I don't know. I don't see them getting Machado. I think they're gonna sign J.A. Happ again, but we'll see. We'll see what they do. I think they're gonna get that Japanese pitcher.
Yeah.
That's my thought. But anyway, back to another Stars and Stripe Bash brother.
Love him. Love Giancarlo here. I'm a big fan of the on base 8 home run at 16 type of guy. Tends to be in that 360 to 380 point range, which creates a lot of lineup flexibility later and lets you sort of stack with those guys, which you have a guy running out of control 4 against you, just becomes a murderer's row. Like eventually you're going to get a chart and you're going to hit a home run. And Stanton's a guy who's going to be very draftable for me personally. Not only the 16 home run, but double at 12. Give me this guy all day.
Absolutely. I mean, he is your typical power hitter. I think that's what he was. Was he an 8-15 through 20 last year? Something along those lines.
Yeah.
When he was with the Marlins. But he moves over to the Yankees. He's still got a lot of power, but maybe not as good as his MVP year. But I'd still draft this guy every chance I get.
And then maybe the most underrated free agent signing so far. I know you really wanted him for the Indians, Andrew McCutchen.
Yeah, I I'm sad now that he's on the Phillies. But I think he's a good player. I think he's a solid outfielder. He's a Michael Brantley type that has MVP qualities if he's healthy. I think he's an above average outfielder, and I think that shows in this card. He's a 9 on base. He's just gonna get the ball and play. He's not really gonna get out a lot. He's not crazy powerful like he used to be. Not a speed demon like he used to be, but he's good. He's really good.
Like he's a guy that you should be your fourth or fifth best player on your team, and especially if you're someone who's more lineup focused. Like this is a guy who can hit in the top 3 spots for most teams.
I agree.
On base 9, double at 16, 16 speed, walk at 3. Like this is a very, very useful card who's going to make a lot of people surprisingly happy and possibly make the Phillies very happy next year.
I think they made a good move picking up. Like I said, I really wanted him for the Indians, but what can you do?
And then Greg Bird, I remember going through the year and just being like, how are the Yankees lineup how is it this good when they've got Greg Bird and Gary Sanchez weighing them down as on base? I mean, for a while they were borderline on base 4 guys. Both ended up on base 5. Greg Bird should not be drafted in any league.
No, and I'm sad about this card. Obviously, he's a power guy. I really truly think that this guy will bounce back. I think he has a lot of potential in real baseball to be a strong power hitter for them first baseman. They joked about at the beginning of the year that he could hit more home runs than Judge or Stanton. I guess he has that much power. I've yet to see it because he keeps getting hurt.
And he keeps just getting out. Like his on base has never been good, and I've been out on him for a long time.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye on him, but he is not draftable in any sense. I mean, you're talking unless you need 70 points. I mean, he's not good. But now some people have already seen these cards if you stay close attention to what we post. But the rookies that the Yankees had, maybe not as good as the rookies that we'll see later on in the Braves, but the rookies the Yankees had were very, very, very high.
Well, Gleiber especially is very useful. This will be talked about because my friends and I just finished our 2017 season with our set, and so we're getting the prep. And Gleyber Torres is one of the top prospects we had, and we just rolled on prospect advancement to sort of figure out whether guys are at their like peak potential, sort of what we project for them to be is sort of like the average major leaguer that they'd be, or a disappointment. Gleyber, I think this is the first of a lot of very good cards. Power numbers, he's right in that 25 to 31 home run range, which is where I expect him to be as a player. And I expect this to be the first of many cards where he's in this on base 8 homer at 17, probably more on base 9 homer at 18 range, and just giving you a great card for a second baseman.
Yeah, I can see his like outs going down, his on base going up, maybe his speed hovering around the same area, but multiple position flexibility. He's a great overall player. I think people will pick up this guy. Maybe not so much Andujar.
I think so. Miguel.
Andujar was great fantasy wise, and I play a lot of fantasy baseball, and I had him in multiple leagues. He was great because he just kept hitting doubles and home runs and getting people in, but less on base than Gleyber. But I really did not know he was that bad at third base. And he was the worst third baseman in defensive runs saved in all of the American League. So he got the -1, which I don't do often, and we were debating whether to even do him at all in the set. But I really like this fun flavor you can get going. I want this guy because he's a 7, 16 through 20.
Yeah.
But can I risk it going backwards in defense? Like, ooh, that's interesting. But again, sometimes these defenses get really overloaded. If you get a second baseman a +5, shortstop +5, maybe you can afford to have a Andujar at third base at a -1.
I think it's a great addition to the game. I think this is probably the first negative fielder that's been rolled out. I think it looks awesome. Like it's cool to just see the minus there. It really catches your eye as soon as you see it, and you're like, wait, what? Whoa.
Yeah, it's not a mistake. It's not a mistake.
And yeah, I love the strategic implications of it.
Well, I think it goes true to baseball as well, too, when you start to think about real baseball going, I got a low on base guy, maybe a 5 or a 6 in showdown terms, but man, can he field the outfield, or man, can he
Yeah.
catch the ball? So it's like I'm gonna have him on my real baseball team. Well, it goes the other way too.
Yep.
What if you're the St. Louis Cardinals here and you've been terrible at first base for the past years, or I guess we'll find out later with the Phillies having Rhys Hoskin and left field hurting you. He was the worst left fielder in all of baseball last year.
Yeah.
But he's supposed to be playing first base, but they wanted him for his bat. So
Yep.
so where's that fine line? And I think that fine line becomes part of your MLB Showdown strategy as well. Do I want this guy, even though he could hurt me defensively, but he's going to help me offensively? And I think it's a really fun addition when we aren't playing the strategy cards. A lot of people aren't. Maybe some of you listeners are, but not everyone is. I sure don't, because I think it speeds up the game. But now I can have more strategy, more in-depth thinking going into it. And then just finish off here with Mr. Sanchez.
He won't get drafted.
Nope. I agree. Very sad. Big home run power, but he won't get drafted, and neither will Austin Roman. Is it Romanini or Romine? The backup catcher.
Rough.
Not good. I do actually think that there's potential for Brett
Both
Gardner.
of the other two.
Brett Gardner being an A speed 22, outfield +2. He's a 6, not great, but
Yeah, great chart.
Yeah, you could put this guy at the end of your lineup. Make sure you got a speed guy in there, and if you do get the advantage, you're not going to get out much, and you still have great defensive ability in the outfield. And then with Neil Walker, I don't know if I could fit any more positions on a card. I tried my best to limit it, but he played so many positions last year. He really kind of sort of played a little bit here, a little bit there, enough where I consider him a multi-position player. Has a little pop, but you're maybe picking this guy out for a bench spot that can come in later. That's about it. But he could be picked up.
Yeah, no, and I guess he really only adds defensive value at third base.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's an improvement if you end up with a guy like Hoskins, who's a -1, and so you get the. Well, maybe you end up with Andahar and Hoskins, and later in the game you're like, all right, one of them I need to sub in for to give some defense here in the final innings.
I could see that, or if you're in an injury league, which I know I don't play or you don't play, but there are people that do play that. I've talked to them. This guy could be on your bench, only has 40 points, and boom, my first baseman's out, my third baseman's out, my outfielder's out. Well, this guy just kind of slides in. He hurts you for a game until your guy's back from being tired or hurt, however you play your seasons.
Yeah.
But he does have that flexibility. If you want to go into the pitching.
Wow. So Yankees have 4 tier 3 guys. So right sort of your steady average starting pitcher. Basically, they have 4 number 2s is the way that I kind of think about it. And Severino is a gorgeous-looking card. Love the pinstripe look on him. And he's your classic control 4, 1 to 16 out guy with 1 walk, 2 singles, and a double, but a big strikeout range.
Yeah, he's the fireballer. But I do like your comparison of of a bunch of number 2 stars. I mean, that's really what they were if you thought about their team.
Yeah.
They didn't have the Chris Sale, they didn't have the Corey Kluber or the Justin Verlander, but they sort of evened out at everyone's number 2, which, I mean, I would take that any day if the Indians weren't so stacked. I mean, if my team had 4 number 2 stars, I'd be pretty happy with myself.
Yeah, and Tanaka kind of surprised me by getting back to the tier 3. I remember midway through the season, people were wondering if he was just toast because he had a rough stretch in there. He ends up as your control 5, 1 to 15 out. The David Cone-like guy, although only a 5-inning pitcher. So only 410 points. With the bullpen the Yankees have, not a surprise.
Yeah.
And then J.A. Happ, control 3, 1 to 17 out. Big 1 to 8 strike. I was kind of surprised J.A. Happ ended up with more of a strikeout range than Severino, which for some reason I just never think of J.A. Happ as a strikeout guy, but he really came through this year.
Not when Severino's throwing 100 miles an hour.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see if Happ ends up re-signing in New York, or if he brings his talents elsewhere, perhaps to Milwaukee. If they're
You want everyone in Milwaukee. For people listening, he's trying to take my Kluber from me. He's trying to take everyone.
Kluber. Kluber, give us Mad Bum. You know what? I won't be greedy. One or the other. I just want one.
Just one of the best pitchers in baseball. Whatever one. But the Yankees did pick up these late guys. Lance Lynn and Jay have to help them make that playoff push. Obviously, it didn't work when they had to face Boston, but it does look good in showdown terms. But I do love having CC in this set, obviously being an old Indian, and if anybody remembers from the 01 OG Pennant edition, he was in there. So you can literally play with your OG set with CC, and you can play with the 2018 set with the new improved CC.
Which that has to be the worst holographic card ever made.
It wasn't that great.
I think it's 10 points.
It is 10 points. It gets drafted a lot because of that, and it's in my league right now being played.
Yeah.
I think he also is like 5 innings.
Yeah. Control 3. I think he's like only 1 to 14 out.
Yeah, that's what it is. So it's really interesting to see that card versus this card, 17 years later. It was like, well, we'll get later on when we have the Bartolo Colon.
Yeah.
And then the Bartolo Colon from 2000. So I think that's really fun.
Yeah, and it's also fun just because CC Sabathia has been one of the most made players, I would say, on this website. I obviously had to make his Brewer card during his half season. And then I also made his Indian card.
I still think he needs
Cy Young year.
I think he needs a batting Brewers card still because he was hitting home runs.
I will forever maintain that he should have won the Cy Young that year. I know that he only pitched like half a year in the NL, but he was so dominant.
Yeah, he was good. I've always loved CC since the days he was at Indians. I think he was dominant, and then now he sort of got hurt a couple years. But he's like a good pitcher. I saw him on MLB Network talking about how he's now trying to do what I think Greg Maddux did a lot of times. So like my velocity's down, so now I'm just going to focus on hitting my pitches, hitting my spots that I'm angles, and making sure I stay consistent with my delivery. And I think that worked out well for him last year. His numbers were not that bad.
No, and that ends up with a tier 3. Basically, it's a very similar card to J.A. Happ, who's one of the more sought-after free agents.
Yeah, I mean, I could see him pitching a few more years. And I think next year, I think he gets, I don't know if it's the wins or the strikeouts. One of those two hits the big number. I don't know if it's 300 wins or whatever the number is. I think next year is
probably strikeouts.
It's a strikeouts, I think.
Yeah.
He hits it next year. I'll look it up while you start going over the bullpen here.
Yeah, so 250 wins. That's pretty big. And 3,000 strikeouts.
Yeah, so he's got 200. Yeah, so he's got 246 wins. He'll probably hit 250 next year, and he's got 2,986 strikeouts. So he'll hit that in like 3 games. So the Yankees next year, I assume they're having him still. I haven't heard anything otherwise. And I know he loves staying in New York. He's gonna hit 2 milestones next year, which, I mean, that's incredible. I mean, he's been playing for 18 years and has been pretty consistent through that with above average, and now I think, like you said, a tier 2 type player, tier 2 to 3 player.
All right, bullpen is, I'm gonna just say it. It's actually down from 2017, which kind of makes sense since it was such a strength on the way to their near World Series bid. But it's still a really great bullpen, especially with the lack of doubles given up here.
Yeah. I mean, I think almost every one of these guys is pretty draftable.
Yeah.
I think what's fun about this bullpen is some of the charts are really interesting. We have a David Robinson being a 3, 1 through 18's and out, which you would be like, oh my God, that guy's amazing. But then he gives it the double. So you're like, ugh. The other 3 don't give up double, so they're all sound amazing. You got a Chad Green being a 5, typical 1 through 15 out, but no double. Seems to be good. You got Batenses as a 3, 1 through 17's out. It's like, that's pretty good with no double. He's probably the most draftable guy that I think on the squad. And then you got Chapman, who I think his chart's really fun, that it goes 1 through 13 strikeout, 14, 15, 16. It just looks really fun to see it.
See, and it's ironic that you say Betances is the most draftable because he would be the least draftable for me.
That's funny. I like him being 3, low salary, 1 through 17 out. I would, if I was having him or Robertson, I would take Betances because of the no double. I don't know how many times I've seen. I'd rather give up the 18 rolled walk than the 20 rolled double on the 20 single. That's me.
That's very valid.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Chad Green just being a 5 without getting the double, it seems like the go-to, or even obviously
Aroldis
Chapman.
is my
Yeah,
man here.
yeah. I mean,
Like
he was so good. He's been good for so many years, but there's something about the value I see. Maybe for 10 more points, I'd take Chapman. Looking at it better now.
because like I get that one
Yeah,
extra control,
yeah,
like sort of the similar way. It's like I'd rather have the one more control and then give up one more walk, and then just
yeah.
the
No, you're
huge
right.
strikeout range.
Yeah, for 10 more points, I'll take Chapman. If you're playing in a league where maybe you can only have so many closers, so many relievers, I do like Betances a lot. I think a chart like that is really valuable, where they don't get the doubles. I was just having some talks with my people in my league, and they were figuring out what to do for next season and how to make
Yeah.
their teams better. And a lot of them are switching to these guys that can't give up doubles. It's a huge.
Mm.
I mean, it is a game changer when there's 2 outs and you give up a double. I mean,
Yep.
versus a single. I mean, it changes the game. So
I legitimately gave up, I think, 3 doubles in a row
Woof.
off my own chart in a World Series game,
Whew.
and it tanked the NL team's chance in a very pivotal situation. It's just too many 20s.
I know. There's only so many odds. There's only so many chances you can roll, right? So obviously, I think the Yankees are a very good team. I think highly draftable. I think all our fans will like them. I'm interested to see how many Yankees fans either like or don't like certain cards, especially Didi.
Yeah.
I think it's going to get a lot of hate, but I think their team overall is great. I think Yankees fans are going to hear this, but Boston was a better team. They deserved to win. Head to head, I guess you'll find out later when Peter and Matt go through all the lineups and the playing. Who wins.
It's going to be, I think the teams match up really interestingly. There's definitely some advantages for the Yankees against, we knew it going into the postseason. Red Sox have a kind of a suspect bullpen. So if they can get to the starting pitchers, anything's possible.
Absolutely. With that, my bourbon is all finished, and I'll thank you guys for listening, and thank you, Peter, for joining.
Thanks for having me, Bob.